gentlemen.
Good morning. So maybe you could answer the question.
I have no idea about Jefferson County. I don't think they know what they want.
How about utility board members? Are they appointed by a county commission, a town council?
Yeah, I think they're appointed by the town council. If it's a Martinsburg utility, then the Martinsburg city council would probably appoint them. So I think it would be the same thing in Jefferson, Charlestown.
All right. Well, it was just quite a story that Andy Calandra, who's on the Ranson Town Council, just told, and how quickly, as John Gilstrap pointed out, 2 years of work to try to attract commercial enterprises just goes away, poof, like that, on a vote.
Yeah, and it's strange with Jefferson County because you're never sure what they want. So there've been efforts in the past to bring heavy industrial there, and there's been an uproar, and they don't want that, and they say they want something less invasive, and then you have something like this, a big project like this, and it seems like somebody throws a wrench in the gears there as well, and it just doesn't come to fruition. So I'm not sure. I've given up trying to figure out Jefferson County and what the heck they want.
You were recently attempting to attract business to West Virginia on a tour in, I believe, London, and did you go to Germany too?
No. Delegate Hornby and Delegate Akers went to Germany. I think they were there for like 2 or 3 days before they came over to London. I was just part of the London contingency, and we got there last Monday.
Okay, let's talk about that trip too. So, did you have several meetings that were prearranged before you flew there, or while you're there, you're trying to stir up some meetings?
We had a couple of prearranged meetings with some businesses that had already indicated that they would like to possibly come to West Virginia. So we had some meetings with them to try to shore that up and get them to make the final decision. And I think those went well. I think I'm pretty sure that they're going to come to West Virginia. So those went well. The rest of them was just sort of recruitment to go over and go to it was an MRO show, which stands for Maintenance, Repair, Overhaul of Aviation, the aviation industry. And we were trying to identify companies that were looking to expand into the U.S. market or expand their presence in the U.S. market, and tell them why West Virginia would be the best place to expand.
When you're there and you're talking in the aircraft industry, are you speaking to them specifically about the airport here in Berkeley County or various airports around the state?
No, I would say around the state. So we've identified several, I would say 5 to 8 different regional airports in West Virginia that have the ability to expand, and we feel are underutilized. And so each one of them offers, slightly different, land development use type thing. So obviously Martinsburg is the largest airport in West Virginia, and offers the most. So there was a combination of trying to sell everything in West Virginia and Martinsburg in particular.
Was there anything other than this type of industry you were discussing, or was this specific to the aircraft industry?
This was very specific to the aircraft industry, this particular trip. Now, there are other economic development trips that we have planned that deal with other industries, whether it's the tech industry or I think plastics is another one. We sort of identify different industries and try to, go and recruit back to West Virginia. This one was very specific to aviation, again, because I believe we have a lot of airports, regional airports, that are underutilized. If you just look at Berkeley County as one and look around that airport, especially on the civilian side, obviously we have a military presence on one side of the airport, but the other side is is tremendously underutilized, and there is an extreme amount of land over there where you could build hangars and bring in industry. So that was the idea of this particular trip.
Matt Miller.
Mike, do you know, at our regional airport here with the military presence, does that add any type of restrictions or make it more challenging for the civilian side of the airport here?
No, I don't think so at all. That because we separate sides of the runway, their side of the runway is very secure, and they keep it very secure, and the civilian side of the runway is, just that. You can't just drive across the runway. So without tower improvement, I'm not saying you can't, but it's pretty secure. I don't think that would deter anyone or anything. Actually, I think it adds to it when you see the size of the aircraft that's taken off on that runway and the length of our runway. You can see we're one of the only runways, I believe, in West Virginia that could actually handle a wide-body jet, a 777, something very large could land on our runway, and we're one of the few runways in West Virginia that could accommodate that.
So clearly, logistics, when I think of companies like an Amazon and so forth, we've got huge warehouses to have a large plane that's bringing in a lot of material that could then go to a warehouse in our area and then, spread out over all of the highways that work through the Panhandle. That would be the type of business that could move to that civilian side.
It could, and what you're describing there would be classified as like an inland port, where you would be doing something like that. And we could try to recruit those types of businesses. I think what we're looking at more right now is less about those inland ports and more about, and the reason I say that is when you have an inland port, you have to have customs patrols out there. So there's a lot of other things that you would have to have. I think what we're looking at in particularly are companies that would service aircraft, whether it be, a company that paints aircraft, and right now on wide-body jets, there's up to a 2-year wait to get a plane painted. So it could be something like that, or it could be somebody that does the maintenance on the large jets. So I think that's what we're looking for in particular, because they bring a lot of jobs with them, and not just regular jobs, but high-paying jobs that aren't necessarily what I would consider white-collar jobs. These are blue-collar jobs that, you would go to some place like Blue Ridge and get educated on how to do that, which is another component to what we're trying to accomplish at the airport out there, that Shepherd and Marshall and Blue Ridge have teamed up to try to put in a school out there to have aviation degrees and aviation certifications, which is what a lot of these MROs are looking for. They want to know that they're going to get educated employees, and they want to know how they're going to get them. So if you put a school like that on site, it's a big attraction for a lot of these maintenance organizations.
Mr. Gilstrap.
So these companies you've been talking to, have they already made the decision that they want to come to the United States, and you're trying to sell them that West Virginia is the place to be? Or are you trying a larger sale that they need to come to the United States and West Virginia is the place they want to be?
So when I was going around, and this is a great big expo type thing, where these companies are set up in booths, and so we're going around, and my goal was to, when I stopped and started talking to them, to try to identify whether they had expansion plans. Are they planning on expanding into the U.S., or do they already have a U.S. presence, and are they looking to expand that presence in the U.S.? And once I could identify whether or not they had those expansion plans, then it was my job to pitch West Virginia to them as a possibility, to say, look at us in the Mid-Atlantic area. We're centrally located. we have a lot of these regional airports with tons of space, that because we're centrally located, you could fly in from just about anywhere on the East Coast or Central U.S. and have your maintenance done. So that's where I would identify them as wanting to expand, and then try to pitch West Virginia to them.
Now, do we focus on aviation because that's an asset that Tennessee does not have, and that really is one of the things that sets us apart from so much of the other competing states that would like to have that same business?
Well, yeah, I think probably 3 or 4 years ago, I think there was the economic development team, as well as others in West Virginia, identified that was underutilized, that our regional airports were underutilized assets, and that we could attract businesses that pay very well and are blue-collar jobs to West Virginia, and that the aviation industry is a growing industry, and it sort of diversifies our economy, and it's one of those assets that we have statewide. This isn't centrally located to the Eastern Panhandle. Obviously, we have space in the Northern Panhandle, the central part of the state, Parkersburg, Beckley. So we have space to utilize around the state. So this just seemed like a no-brainer at the time. So we've been pushing hard on the aviation and aeronautics industry.
So that's an interesting question. If you found a company that wanted to paint airplanes, and they would say, absolutely, we want to do this, we'd like to do this in Berkeley County at the facility here, how confident are you that we could get a program like that through the DEP? I mean, that's kind of a dirty operation.
I don't think it would be a big deal. That most modern paint shops like that, already work with the EPA and the DEP, so they're familiar with what they would have to do in those regards. So I'm not real worried about that. But because it has to do with airports and FAA, the first step in any of these developments is to have environmental studies done. So we're looking around the state to identify those locations where we can do some build out and some development, and try to get those environmentals out of the way early, because the environmentals can take 6 months to 18 months to get done. So we'd like to take care of those now, so that when we identify companies that want to come to West Virginia, that's not an additional 6 to 18 month wait.
Overall, were you encouraged by the trip? I mean, these are interesting times politically in general, and interesting times in West Virginia as well. So when you talk with the folks overseas and in your pitching coming to the United States and doing business here, do you get encouraging results?
Yeah, I mean, because look, some of them are concerned about things like tariffs and so on and so forth. So any industry that they can bring to the U.S. and avoid those tariffs and do here, that I think that helps their bottom line. So I think they're looking at that in a way that if they can expand into the U.S. market and not have to pay tariffs, that was a positive thing. And not all of these, I mean, I mentioned painting airplanes, but a lot of these could be component manufacturers as well. So, there's a whole plethora of things in the aeronautics industry that could come.
How much authority do you have when you're on these trips, Mike, in regards to negotiating deals or making concessions?
Usually about the same amount I have in my own house, which is very little. So our job is sort of to identify possibilities and generate leads. And once we do that, then we sort of turn them over to an economic development team at the state level, and they sort of take it from there and negotiate. You got to figure that our economic development team at the state level are only a handful of people, so it's difficult for them to go out and and do the same thing that we can as delegates and teams of 6 to 8 or whatever at a show like this, that they just don't have the manpower to do it. So if we can go out and identify solid leads for them, that moves the needle a whole bunch.
Could you at least include maybe one member of that economic development team as a part of your entourage that goes, that can maybe get into the weeds a little more?
So we're in contact with them on a regular basis all the time about what we're doing, who we're meeting with. We take a lot of notes and stuff. We take a staffer with us, so it's not just all delegates over there. We had a gentleman from Marshall, Tony Stroud. I don't know if you're familiar with him, from Marshall, who's part of their economic development team with us. So we're in contact with them, but they don't necessarily become part of our team while we're over there. And you got to realize there are a lot of these different shows going on at the same time. So they may identify somewhere else where they think they need to go, sort of like what Delegate Hornby and Akers did with Germany, and going over there to that show a couple of days early and then coming over to the London show. Our international economic team for West Virginia may have identified somewhere else in Europe that they were going to go while we were taking care of the London show.
When you make a trip like this, is there a goal in mind that something that comes from this trip may develop within 4, 5, 8, 10-year span? Or is it just at this stage gathering information, not knowing where it may go?
It's a little bit of both. We hope that, even if somebody's not willing or interested in expansion right now, we've planted a seed, hopefully, that some people may not have ever thought about West Virginia as an option. So when it comes time for them, they say, it's time to do some expansion. That could be 4 or 5 years down the road. They can say, hey, remember, there was a West Virginia contingency. They have a lot of regional airports. Let's look at them. Because for them, a lot of it's about money and return on investment. So, they're looking for cheaper places to go where they know they can get quality employment. So there's a lot of different factors that play into there. So hopefully it was a little bit of both.
While you are there doing what you're doing, is the state Senate also sending contingents of senators to different countries doing a similar economic recruitment?
Similar. So yeah, they're doing some of the same things. Now, we invited them to be a part of this. They declined. They had some other things going on. I think these were domestic. I'm not privy to a whole bunch of them, but they're sort of doing their own thing as well. Yeah.
I know you're kind of new to this, but is it ever a joint House and Senate going to the same thing so that we're kind of pooling expenses here?
Yes. So, well, I don't know about pooling expenses, because when delegates go on these trips, it comes out of a delegate fund that comes out of the House budget, and when the senators go, it comes out of the Senate budget. So it would still come out of different sections of the budget. There will be no pooling of funds, but I'm pretty sure that while we were in London, I think there was a contingency out at some kind of Vegas show, or dealing with somebody out there that might be coming to West Virginia as well. So, and I think we had a House and Senate presence out there.
How do you fight skepticism? And I'm just going to throw it out there, because when I hear us talk about the airport, I can't help but think of Sino-Swearingen and all those things that were going to happen a couple of decades ago now, I guess it's been, and nothing ever really developed. So when we get back into this conversation of aviation and things at the airport and going to London and so forth, how do you kind of fight through some of those thoughts that may be there from people going, never going to happen?
Well, I think we've sort of taken a different approach. We're not trying to identify startup companies that are trying to build a brand new aircraft. what we're trying to do is identify the need to do the maintenance and repair on existing aircraft, and that we've identified that there's just not enough of those around, that there is a wait. The aviation industry is extending the life of their aircraft. They're not buying as many new. So when you extend the life of aircraft, obviously there's more maintenance that has to be done. So we've identified that we want to bring in companies that are going to fix the current aircraft because we know they're there, and that we've identified that there's a shortage of that. So I think our approach is a whole lot different than it was with a Sino-Swearingen, and this Sino-Swearingen was a new aircraft that hadn't even gotten FAA approval yet. So I think we had the wrong approach then. I think we've identified the right approach now.
Where are the future business trips headed, Michael?
I know there's one coming up before the end of the year to Portugal. I'm pretty sure it's an aviation one. No. I think it's a tech. It's a tech show. So other than that, I don't know of any other ones other than the Portugal trip.
And do you have to put a report together upon your return that goes to someone in particular?
Yeah, and that's why we take a staffer with us. And I had a staffer with me when I went around a couple of the days, and I'll tell you what, they were great. I got to go in and start talking with, and the nice thing about these shows is you get to talk to people at the top. So many of my conversations were with the CEOs of these companies, and I got to go in and talk to them and talk about expansion and talk about West Virginia, yada, yada, yada. And I had a staffer behind me who was taking notes and taking business cards the whole time so that they could develop a report once we got back. So it worked really well.
Final minute, Matt, quick one.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, are you running into a lot of representatives from other states at expos like this when you go to other countries?
I won't say a lot, but I would say yes, there are. So this was called MRO Europe, and there was an Oklahoma contingency there that had a block of booths that they actually paid for booths and were over there. And Oklahoma is the MRO capital of the United States right now. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 MROs in their state because they identified that this was important to them several years ago and have capitalized on it. So they were there. Florida is another big one.
Mike, on that note, I got to jump in because we are out of time. I thank you for yours, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen.